The win total at 11.5. They are plus 100 favorites to win the NFC East and plus 330 to win the conference and 8-1 to win the Super Bowl. Of course, Prop Shop's your friend. Get the best possible odds. DK I saw this morning plus 650, which is the second shortest odds. Kansas City favored there at plus 600. But you can get the best possible odds. Save yourself a lot of time and some cash by visiting ftmbets.com. Free prop shop tool up at the top there. Quan, do you want to show the overall NFC East division odds as well? Of course, Philly there. The Cowboys at plus 190, the Giants at 8-1, and the Commanders at 13-1. Jovan, want to just talk about the division overall? I mean, it's been one of the I remember like a couple of years ago, it was NFC least talk. Like everyone was poking fun at the division. I get it. But before that, like for years, this has been always one of the most competitive divisions, not only in football, but in sports. And I said earlier that there hasn't been a repeat division winner in the NFC East since 2004. The Cowboys are certainly a playoff squad. Washington has some issues, I think, at the quarterback position. But the Giants, I thought, have really had a good offseason, and getting Brian Daboll and him kind of fixing Daniel Jones. I mean, he did wonders with Daniel Jones last year. What do you make of the division overall as we head into the NFL season?
It's going to be a fun division. I mean, you mentioned it, right? The Commanders, we kind of don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. They got Jacoby Brissett, and it seems like they want to roll with Sam Howell as their guy, with a new offensive coordinator, Eric Bieniemy. So it's going to be fun to see how he can kind of get that offense going with the playmakers that they have, because that's one thing we can say about Washington is they do have a lot of good playmakers on offense. The McLaurins, the Dotsons, the Robinsons, the Gibsons. So seeing how he can kind of work how into what his offense is and kind of see if he can get some juice going, because that's one thing that we didn't see with Washington. Not a lot of juice from that offense, and that was because the quarterback play wasn't the greatest for him. So you look at that, you look at, the Giants, like you said, Brian Daboll, amazing job year one to kind of, turn everything around, because it looked like things were going the wrong way, with Joe Judge and going real south real quick. But he got that team to believe and, pulled off an upset, against Minnesota, and, Daniel Jones, second year in the offense, Saquon's back. You add a guy like Darren Waller, who is going to be an amazing boost to that receiver core, no disrespect, to the Richie James and, Isaiah Hodgins, who were great, for betting and DFS purposes. But Darren Waller changes that offense. So I like that too. And then, like you said, Eagles, Cowboys, I think this is where it's going to come down to, the two teams that, they split last season, but it wasn't an easy split. It was definitely close. The Eagles could have swept them if maybe Hurts was playing and not Gardner Minshew. Minshew did his best there. So I think it's gonna be a fun division overall. Dallas is still gonna be Dallas. They added, Stephon Gilmore to that secondary to pair, with Diggs. It's gonna be interesting to see what Tony Pollard does as lead back this year with no Zeke, and how Dak does. Trying to rebound from his turnover issues. And the Eagles, if it's going to be, what can you do after, losing the Super Bowl? Can you kind of, rebound from that loss, learn from what happened and what went well, what didn't go well, and carry that over into this season?
Yeah, and Brennan Cooks added to the receiver room in Dallas. Kellen Moore gone now. Schottenheimer. Huge. Yeah, I mean, they needed somebody opposite, I think, of CeeDee Lamb, and now they got somebody, I believe, in Brennan Cooks. But it will be interesting to see how that offense does look without Moore. And you mentioned, Minshew against Dallas, and the first time that the Eagles played Dallas, there was no Dak either. So didn't get the Dak and Jalen Hurts. You're going to get it. Hopefully, you're going to be able to see it twice this season. So mentioned Kellen Moore now gone as offensive coordinator in Dallas. Let's just kind of start there with Philly and some of the offseason stuff here. Looking at them overall, the key losses, they lost Miles Sanders, Javon Hargrave goes to San Fran, Kazir White, Andre Dillard, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Marcus Epps. Like they some dudes left. Yeah. There's no question. Lost their offensive coordinator, lost in Steve Steikens, now the head coach in Indy, and lost their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon, now the head coach in Arizona. But they did keep some guys that I thought maybe they would lose, right? I thought Bradbury was out the door. They found a way to bring him back. After that extension, it sounded like Darius Slay was going to be out the door. I also appointed him in Baltimore, but he ends up signing a 2-year extension. Brendan Graham's back. Fletcher Cox is back. Hall of Famer Jason Kelsey is back. So they did keep, certainly some guys that have been around for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Bring in DeAndre Swift, Rashaad Penny, Marcus Mariota is going to back up. Minshew's gone. I think there are some holes maybe in the safety middle parts of the field, but this quarterback duo is certainly going to be one of the best again in football. And like they did 2 years ago in the draft, they drafted a bunch of Georgia guys, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Kalen Ringo. So some Georgia Bulldogs on that squad as well. But what do you make overall of the changes, and just kind of touch on a team losing an offensive coordinator is one thing to make some adjustments, but you see too often losing an OC and a DC in the same season, dude.
Yeah, it's unprecedented, right? Like you said, you usually lose one or the other. You keep one and keep on the other. But obviously, especially for that Eagles offense, for the success that they had for the 2 years, with Hurts kind of taking that step, a team like the Colts said, hey, we might as well take a chance on Shane Steichen. If he was able to do that with Hurts, what can he do with Anthony Richardson? And then Gannon, I'm pretty sure most Eagles fans are happy that Jonathan Gannon is now in the desert. But 2 losses nonetheless. However, I will say, the good news for the Eagles, I think, for the Eagles and for Eagles fans, is that I think Brian Johnson will do a great job as the offensive coordinator for someone. And that's always another thing, can you, even when you lose both coordinators, can you try to fill in-house so you don't lose that continuity? And they didn't do that offensively, elevating Brian Johnson from the quarterback coach job, elevate him to the offensive coordinator, someone that Jalen has worked with. So I think the offense, should be on the same clicking. Now it's different being quarterback coach to calling the plays offensively, but I think, that should have some consistency. And defensively, I think everybody's waiting to see what a Sean Desai defense will look like, especially we saw what Gannon's defense was, which was we'll rush 4. We're not really going to blitz, we're just going to lean on the pass rush. And obviously that bit them in the Super Bowl. But you look at Sean Desai, he's now going to enter in a situation where dude has playmakers at all 3 levels. You mentioned the defensive line, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Jordan Davis, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox. I mean, so many different names. Yeah, Reddick, right? Who's low-key been one of the best pass rushers in the league over the last few years. Absolutely. And doesn't get, I think, enough credit for what, he's done, being at multiple teams and still playing at a high level. It's going to be interesting. And then, like you mentioned the secondary, like you said, keeping Bradbury and keeping Slay and Avonte in the slot. I think for Desai, you got to be excited about that. Like, all right, I got starting secondary locked in. You add Greedy Williams. You like you said, you draft Ringo, and then the secondary, like you said, that's why I'm going to be interested what Desai does and who does he decide to play, because Reed Blankenship took some strides last year as an undrafted free agent and played pretty well. Looked like the guy that I think a lot of us saw at Middle Tennessee, just being a playmaker back there. But can he do it for a full season? We'll see. Terrell Edmonds, I think, was a sneaky signing by the Eagles, getting him on that 1-year deal. And then Sidney Brown, who a lot of people like coming out of Illinois. So if you're Sean Desai, hopefully you bring more than 4 and you can blitz a little bit, because you do have playmakers and just talent across the board on defense where you can do some exotic things.
Yeah, Gannon, I wasn't crazy about him. I wasn't crazy about the way I just felt like the personnel really helped him a lot. He played pretty conservative. He didn't give up big plays. And it's amazing to think, because you look at, they almost set the all-time sack record. You would think that this team was a blitz machine, and they weren't. They kind of played conservative and they sat back a little bit. So I think the Eagles will miss Steichen a little bit more than they'll miss Gannon. But I like the call out there for Brian Johnson, and excited to see what he can bring to the table as well. Offensively, this team can bring it. According to Football Outsiders, they were first in rush DVOA, 9th in pass DVOA, total offense they were 6th. They led the NFC in points per game. They were 3rd overall in points per game. I mentioned off the top, Jalen Hurts, like this guy's been nothing but really a winner over the past 2 years. I mean, 16-2 last season, 14-1 in the regular season, 19-2 in his last 21 regular seasons as well. We're going to take a quick break. I want to roll through the schedule. If you don't mind, maybe hang out another 10, 12 minutes or so. If you don't mind, we'll do a couple more blocks. Maybe we'll roll through the Eagles schedule and then kind of look at some of their assets from a fantasy perspective. Really, there's not a lot to say about Hurts or the 1-2 punch between Smith and AJ. But I want to get your thoughts in the backfield and how you think that may shape out as well. So Javon's going to stick around. We'll be back in a couple. We're going to roll through what is the toughest schedule in the NFL. Dallas Nation in the house. We'll get to the Cowboys. We'll give them some love that they certainly deserve as well. They're going to definitely hang around the division. I think both of these two teams are going to have to go through each other to get to the Super Bowl. The NFC is completely wide open this year, and Dallas and San Fran and Philly are up at the top in the NFC for sure. Man, Howie has taken a lot of heat, of course, drafting wide receivers and missing wide receivers over the past couple of years. But man, he's done some really good things in buying low. You talked about some of the buy lows that he had, in the offseason and even the year before, midway through the year, and then Reddick and some of the other moves that he has made, going and getting AJ. Heck, I can't draft a wide receiver. I'm just going to go get an alpha. But he did get DeVonta Smith in there as well. Defensively, they were first in pass DVOA, according to Football Outsiders, sixth in total DVOA. They did struggle against the run, but I think that's a little bit skewed because teams just really could not pass on them. But let's go through this schedule. Have a little fun assignment. It's only June 7th. Things will change, of course, in the NFL. Things will change. But Quan, I think you brought it up earlier. If you want to bring it up again, according to opponents' record, their winning percentage last season. Again, you kind of take this with a grain of salt because teams change from year to year, but the Eagles have the hardest schedule, and all that nonsense I heard last year about having the easiest schedule. I saw like something that they were one win off from like an NFL record. They had like X amount of wins against teams with a winning record. Like, I just felt like there was 4 or 5 legit teams in the NFL last year and then a bunch of mediocre squads. Anyways, the Eagles, their opponents, a .566 winning percentage from last year. It's the hardest in the NFL. The Dolphins second, the Giants third, the Patriots and the Cowboys. So 3 of the 4 teams here in the NFC East, the hardest. And on the other side, you see the easiest, the Falcons, the Saints, the Texans, the Colts, and the Titans. I mean, those teams in their respective divisions, not very good. So I think that's part of it there. But let's walk through this Eagles schedule. Week 1 in New England. Big Tom Brady day. They're going to talk Tom Brady up there. I don't know, just thank him for everything that he did. But we'll roll through this kind of rapid fire. But week 1 in New England, win or loss?
Week 1, I'll give him the dub. I'm going to give him the dub.
I'm going to give him the dub too. So we're both got him at 1-0. Okay, week 2, home opener. Prime time against Kirk Cousins and the Vikings. I had to throw prime time Kirk Cousins, take a couple shots at him. You know how it is.
Second year in a row, back in prime time, week 2 against the Vikings. I think the Eagles come away with the dub.
I think they do too. Okay. In Tampa Bay, Monday Night Football against maybe Baker or Trask. Who knows?
Ooh, this is where I think it could be a trap game. Like, for some reason, I think this could be a trap game. Just because defensively, I don't know what we're going to get offensively from Tampa. So it might be a trap game, but you know what? I'm going to give the Eagles the win. Let's give the Eagles the win.
Yeah, give them the win. They're winning that one.
It's going to be a tight game. It's going to be a tight one.
For week 4 at home to Washington, which was the one loss that Jalen Hurts had in the regular season against Washington. Just a beautiful brand of football I thought they played. They just ran, little chunk throws, and the Eagles struggle on offense. Do they find a way to beat Washington at home week 4?
Week 4, I'm going to give Washington a dub. For some reason, these two teams somehow split, so I'm going to give Eagles the L there against Washington.
Okay. Week 5 in LA against the Rams.
Ooh, that's gonna be a good game. I'm gonna give the Eagles the dub. I'm gonna give them the dub. Okay,
you got them at 4-1. I got them at 5-0. This is where I think their first loss here is week 6 in New York to take on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going. I think it's going to be
giving a loss there.
Yeah.
So you got them at 4-2. I got them at 5-1. A week 7 at home against Miami.
I like the Eagles against Miami.
Yeah, I got them at 6-1. So you got them at 5-2. Week 8 in Washington against the Commanders. That's where I'll give them a loss. They split. I'll give them the loss there. You give them a loss as well?
I'll give them the win. I'm gonna give them the win.
You give them the win.
Yeah, because they beat them early in the season. Yep.
Okay, gotcha. So you have a split against Washington?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, fair enough. All right. Week 9 before the bye at home against the Cowboys.
I'm gonna give them the win against the Cowboys.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. I think we got them at 7-2. For you, 7-2. I got them at 7-2. The loss to the Jets and the loss to the Washington. Out of the bye, things get really tough. Kansas City, week 11 in Kansas City. Both teams coming off a bye, rematch of the Super Bowl. But Andy Reid off the bye, my goodness.
Andy Reid off the bye. Eagles gonna play well, but I gotta give the edge to KC at home in Arrowhead in prime time.
Yeah, okay. 7-3, then back home to play Buffalo.
I like the Eagles against Buffalo.
Okay. So we got them at 8-3, 8-3. In Dallas to play the Cowboys. I'm gonna give them a loss there.
I'm gonna give them
split with Dallas.
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a loss. Yep, I'm gonna give them a loss too against Dallas. Yep.
8-4. In Seattle, week 15.
Ooh.
I really like Seattle.
Yeah, I do too. I really like Seattle too. But I think the Eagles go up there and handle business in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay, I like it. Giddy up. Week 16 at home against the Giants.
The Giants. I think I like them against the Giants. Yeah, I'll give them the win there.
We're gonna spank the Giants again. Week 17, Arizona. We're giving them that win. My goodness,
that's a win.
What is Arizona going to look like week 17? Holy crap!
So we got them at starting in week 17.
Yeah. So we got them at 11-4. I think my math is correct. And then week 18, it's not correct. Against the Giants, week 18 against the Giants in New York. I would give the Giants a win there. I give the Giants a win. Maybe the Eagles are resting. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves, but maybe they get the split. Maybe the Giants win one game. Where are you at? They wrap up with a win?
I think they beat the Giants on a win.
So we got them over 11.5 then. We got them having a loss, one loss against Washington.
Yep.
One loss against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
A loss in Kansas City.
Yep.
A loss to the Jets.
Yep.
And then maybe a loss in there to the Giants at the end. So we have them over. We have them like a 4 or 5 loss team. I don't think we're being too homerish here, but
no.
After the bye is really tough for them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even before that, Dallas bye in Kansas City, home to Buffalo, home to San Fran, in Dallas, and in Seattle. I may have skipped over that San Fran game, which won't be easy for them either. But I think the over 11.5, I think they're another 12 or 13 win team, right?
Oh yeah, I think when I saw that number, I know I saw on DK they had like the all overs at like 13.5. I was like, no, let's not do that again. I don't think that's happening. But 11.5, I think they can get over that.
The ADP is from underdog Jalen Hurts. They're going as quarterback 3. He was first in fantasy points per game last season. He's in a tier with Allen and Mahomes, and I do believe he belongs in that tier. DeAndre Swift, Rashaad Penny, Kenneth Gainwell there. A.J. Brown going as wide receiver 6, 8.2 on average. DeVonta Smith as wide receiver 13, 23.6 on average. Both of those guys finished as top 10 wide receivers in fantasy football. Dallas Goedert as 10 and 6, picked 68.7 on average. Talk to me about this backfield, because we all know the offensive line is great. This has been the best rushing team in football over the past couple of years. Of course, Jalen Hurts has 20-plus rushing touchdowns and over 1,500 rushing yards in each combined in the last 2 seasons. But the O-line is solid. But Swift, Philly boy, hasn't been able to put a full season together, and neither has Rashaad Penny. But, dude, when those two guys are healthy, they've been pretty productive, especially Penny. And Kenneth Gainwell kind of, had a really nice showing towards the end of the season and into the postseason. How do you think this backfield is going to shape out? What do you think the touches look like?
It's going to be tough. It's going to be a lot of running back by committee. But like you said, when all these guys are healthy, including Swift and Penny, like they're the perfect complement to each other. If I had to make a choice to say who's going to be like the lead back in that backfield, I would probably have to lean towards DeAndre Swift, just because he brings that pass catching element that they kind of didn't showcase a lot with Miles Sanders last season, even though his rookie year he was pretty solid pass catcher. But last year we didn't see anything from him in the pass catching ability. I think Swift could do it if he could stay healthy. And the same thing with Rashaad Penny. If Rashaad Penny could stay healthy, right, and not have a ankle or a fibula, like they could be really good. So I think right now for me, they're like RB1A and RB1B. It just depends on like who can take advantage of the situation. But I think Swift, I think offers more from a fantasy perspective because of his ability to be a pass catcher out of the backfield, which he did well last season in Detroit.
Yeah, he's been one of the better pass catchers, I think, in among running backs since he's entered the league. I mean, you see the comment there from Lee, just can't really trust Swift, not sold on Swift. Penny could start. I think we could see Penny be like the goal line back in this offense, even though, it is Jalen Hurts, but Swift didn't get a whole lot of goal line carries last year with Detroit, and Penny is like that, maybe that short yardage back, but more upside with DeAndre Swift. I think in best ball, you can make a case for a bunch of guys, but I think this is going to be a full-on committee. We got to get you out of here, but it's really, one of the good things I think that Howie has done. I mean, that running back room is like 2% of their cap, like $5 million combined. Boston Scott is going to ball out in week 15 and week 17 or week 16 and 18 against the Giants, like he always does. But I think we'll see a full-on committee, and that's a good thing to have in the NFL. I want to keep guys fresh, and maybe Penny and Swift will be able to stay healthy because of that.